What's up, cowgirls, cowboys, booby sattvas? I didn't plan on making a video this morning. I haven't shaved. It's early in the morning. I've got still my nasal strip. My nose is still red from my nasal strip. I was sitting down, I was eating my hard-boiled eggs. I was put on all my internet blockers except for YouTube because I was gonna eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, watch a little Brad Warner on YouTube, and then sit down and do my writing for the day. But watching Brad Warner inspired me to make a video. Not anything he said, just kind of his nice, easy manner got me thinking about Zen Buddhism and a topic that has been on my mind a lot lately, and I want to take it out, put it on the table, unpack it, do an unboxing of this issue, and come to 0 conclusions, but just explore it a little bit with you. And this is the topic of ethics and enlightenment. Okay, so I want to read an email to you that I got from a friend of mine. Here's what he said. I've been thinking about Zen and ethics. If there's no self and just the moment, do we just let go and let the universe be good to itself? That's actually a pretty good way of putting it. Let's keep reading. From what I'm reading, Brad Warner's book is one. If we cannot get ego involved, moral action happens on its own because it's an intrinsic part of mind, capital M, mind. Now, those completely lost in monkey mind shouldn't just let go. But those who have had some experience with emptiness at some point need to practice what they preach, he says in air quotes, be an all-star athlete and let the intuitive juice score the points. What do you think? So what he's basically saying is, I gotta think about what he's basically saying. Like I said, it's early in the morning and I have not fully consumed my green tea. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. So to address this question of ethics and enlightenment, I want to start off by talking about my own teacher, Joshu Sasaki Roshi, who is a Rinzai Zen Buddhist master from Japan. What he taught me over and over and over was like how you would expect like a truly wise person to teach you. Like he did it hands-on. So I had these strong boundaries and this strong thinking mind and this strong ego. But what Roshi did was he cut through those boundaries. And oftentimes, as I've talked about ad nauseum on this channel, it was by shaking my hand, touching me. So he would bring me into a hug, and he would hug me, and he would show me the metaphysical principle and truth behind this hug. He was manifesting the truth. It was no separation, one cosmos. And he would do that over and over and over. And gradually this along with all of the practice, helped me begin to step outside of this paradigm of Jack versus the universe. Jack over here, everything he wants, everything he hates, everything he's afraid of, and everything he desires over here outside of himself. So that experience was invaluable. But I'd be a liar and a phony if I didn't say there wasn't another side to Roshi. I mean, I think Leonard Cohen, who worked with him, said that Roshi was like a nuclear fireball rolling down a mountain, and you just better get the heck out of his way. So he had that quality. I mean, he was savage in certain respects. I mean, I watched him absolutely lacerate one of his senior students once at a dinner, at a formal dinner at our temple. And Roshi was at the head of the table, and this student was down a ways, and he was a senior priest, and he'd been practicing with Roshi practically from the beginning. And Roshi, he was an old man at this point, Roshi was. He was in his hundreds, and he was shouting so hard and for so long at this senior student that he actually passed out in his chair. And we're sitting there, a dining hall of like 40 people, like, what do we do now? And then he kind of woke up and resumed his tsunami of rage against this student. And I mean, you have never heard someone verbally had the kicked out of them as what Roshi did to the student. And afterwards, we were all like, too much. He humiliated him, he screamed at him, he yelled at him, he reduced him to cinders of ash. And yet, that guy was a stubborn man. And arguably, Roshi was speaking to him on his terms, and in a way that would get through to him. And indeed, it didn't get through to him, because the thing that Roshi was yelling at him about, the guy wound up doing again and again and again, and is still doing now. So the question arises, was Roshi behaving in an ethical, compassionate manner in that moment? Sasaki Roshi, if I may use an overused and unclear term, was the most enlightened human being I have ever had the great fortune to meet. So I'm inclined to say that his manifestation in that moment was supremely ethical, if very harsh and strong. But then there were other aspects of Roshi's behavior that were way more problematic. I had a female friend who went to do sanzen or koan practice with him. So for those of you who don't know, sanzen and koan practice is when you're in the sanzen room alone with the teacher, you present your koan and your answer to your koan to the teacher, and then you work with them. So Roshi had many female students. One of them was a friend of mine. We'll call her Sarah.
Okay, so this is future Jack with my midnight radio DJ voice editing past Jack. So at this point, I started talking about my teacher's sexual misconduct. And I think I'm just going to edit this all out because it's just, I don't want to talk about this stuff quite the way I did here. So, but basically what I was saying was I was contrasting my sanzen experiences with Roshi breaking my boundaries in a good way with women in our community who experienced Roshi breaking their boundaries as sexual misconduct, okay? And this was in preface to a discussion I will get into now about the precepts in Buddhism and the threefold training.
So in Buddhism, there's the threefold path, or the three trainings or qualities that you're cultivating through your practice. You could translate them as higher mind, higher virtue, and higher wisdom. So if you take the ethics part of this, the sila, you have 5 precepts, okay? And again, poorly translated, it would be abstain from immoral, toxic, harmful sexual behavior, abstain from stealing, abstain from lying, abstain from killing or harming living beings, and abstain from intoxication. So these are the 5 sila or precepts in Buddhism. Now, interestingly, my teacher, Sasaki Roshi, had a very unique take on the precepts. The precepts that he gave us to say at our Tokudo Shiki ordination ceremonies were, I will not attach to intoxication, but I will not attach to no intoxication. I will not attach to harming living beings, but I will not attach to not harming living beings. I will not attach to lying, but I will not attach to no lying or honesty. I will not, and so on and so forth for the other two precepts, which are escaping my head right now. So it's a non-attachment to unvirtuous behavior and a non-attachment to virtuous behavior. If you attach to virtuous behavior, it's not maybe a clear path, but it's a slippery slope to, for example, flying planes into the World Trade Center on behalf of the ethical truth that you stand for. To attach to virtuous behavior is to become a Jain and put a mask over your mouth so that you don't inhale and kill almost nearly invisible creatures, microbes, or God forbid a mosquito lands on your arm and you swat it and kill it. Like, attachment to virtuous behavior is not the Buddhist way. It's not right. It's pushing aside a reality for a dogma or an ideal. On the one hand, on the other hand, I think that no matter how, quote unquote, enlightened you are, no matter how deep in your practice you are, it is problematic in the extreme if you think you've reached a point where you can just throw the precepts out. Seems to me that we all have blind spots. We all have programming. And all of us, put in a certain circumstance, are going to behave in a way where our programming manifests and we hurt somebody, or somebody gets in our blind spot, we can't see them, and we hurt them. And the precepts are a tool. They're a way of helping us not hurt each other. So the teaching is wiser than the individual, right? The individual may in a moment be thinking, well, I could, for example, smack this student across the face. Like, the teacher could be thinking that. If I smack, not thinking it, just this energy arises in the teacher. I'm going to smack this student to make them snap out of a particular moment of ignorance. But then maybe because this teacher has done a lot of training and has studied the precepts, the teacher remembers that teaching of don't harm, the sila, the precept of don't harm other living beings. And in that moment, the teaching is wiser than the teacher. And the teaching causes the teacher to not slap the student. Well, lucky he didn't, because he would have, let's say, knocked something loose in the student's head and given him a concussion, right? The ethical teachings help us to put into practice this greater Buddhist principle of oneness, of if me, then you. So if I hurt you in some way, I have hurt myself. And in some sense, I've brought the sum total of suffering in this cosmos. I've raised it up in that moment. And wow, was that a mistake? Well, of course, human beings make mistakes. Human beings have programming. Human beings have blind spots. In my experience in Buddhism, the teachings, and especially the ethical teachings, while very dry in some ways and not very fun — who wants to follow 5 commandments, right? I got into Buddhism to get away from the 10 commandments. Now I got to follow 5. I'm just 5 commandments lighter, but I still got to follow 5 commandments. Well, over the processing my teacher's sexual scandal, looking at my own behavior and my own total blind spots, living for many years on this planet and seeing that no matter how wise I thought I was behaving in certain circumstances, I was still manifesting blind spots. Seeing all that, I find myself concluding it's wise to take the precepts very seriously. And I think the greatest expression of overall truth is in the precepts that I said at my ordination. Don't attach to virtue, but don't attach to non-virtue. I think that that's a great philosophical expression of the principles behind Buddhist teachings. Also, it's really good just to consider the teachings in the simplest, most instructive way. Don't kill, don't get wasted on intoxicants, don't lie, don't steal, and don't behave in a way that is sexual misconduct. Thank you for watching and being a part of this channel. If you want to support this channel, I'm going to leave a PayPal and Patreon link in the description of this video below. PayPal's just like a straight up buying me a coffee or whatever. Thank you for that. PayPal, or Patreon, is a website hosting service thing where I have videos, blog posts, essays, and a lot of interesting, smart people making interesting, smart comments on the various things that I have there. So it's kind of a nice little community. So I throw this stuff out there for free, but if you want to support this channel, those are a few different ways you can do it. Also, if you can hit the subscribe and hit the like button, that helps this channel get out there and reach more people. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.